We're back to spotlighting X-Men characters, with this video being on the earthbending mutant Petra. And today's a bit of an interesting case since she's a character who was retconned into existing, only to then be killed. But she does kind of come back. She would come from the 6-issue series X-Men Deadly Genesis from 2005 to 2006. Now the main events take place between Uncanny X-Men issue 474 and 475. There will be two different stories being told, one in present day and one in the past, both important, although for Petra we'll be mainly focusing on the backup stories that are flashbacks, but a quick overview for context. This is a story about an X-Men team that existed between the two variations. That being after the original 60s team of Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Angel, and Beast, but before the 70s team that consisted of characters like Wolverine, Storm, and Nightcrawler, making this retcon slot between the events of the original team being kidnapped by Krakoa and the new team rising to save them. The idea being that between these two teams existing, there was another one that was sent to save the original X-Men, a team that would be killed off by the Living Island. While the present-day story follows the team's sole survivor, Vulcan, aka Gabriel Summers, wanting revenge on Professor X, which is honestly kinda reasonable in my opinion. Maybe not the way he goes about it, attacking the entirety of the X-Men who didn't know, but Professor X is he's not really a good person in this story, and he's not made out to look that well. This series being most known for being the first appearance of Vulcan, that being the other brother of Cyclops and Havoc. Also, this arc is known for killing off Banshee. This arc altogether is actually pretty controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's very mixed. I'm someone that actually enjoyed it, but I can admit there's some flaws, some pretty big flaws. Anyways, during this series we get flashback backup stories of showing off this team, with the characters getting their origins told, who we already know are going to die, with the writing trying to make you care about these characters who you know won't make it. It's X-Men's version of Rogue One, but it came out a decade earlier, so I guess Rogue One is Star Wars' version of Deadly Genesis. Do I get views now that I reference Andor, or reference the movie that Andor spun off of? This team would consist of 4 members, Vulcan, Darwin, Petra, and Sway, all of which would get their own origins in a backup story of each issue, which is probably why the team is so small since it's only a 6-issue series and the last 2 flashback stories are of actually showing the team in action. Petra would actually be the first to get her origin told in the backup of issue 1. There's also a bit of a strange occurrence with the name Petra. It means rock in Greek, and at first one might think it's her real name because it's how she's referred to as a child. But in Mutant Files it's listed as an alias. So maybe it's a nickname from childhood that just stuck with her until she was a superhero? But it was something a little odd to me that the character was referred to as Petra even as a kid. Her origin would introduce us to her as a runaway teen living on the streets of New York, where she often would see all the mutant hate, including have once witnessed Sentinels in action above her. But she doesn't take herself as scared, that her parents might have not known they raised a mutant, but they raised her not to be a fool, who is afraid of reminders that people would hate her. She thinks back to her family. They were Denmark immigrants who had dealt with just regular ignorance from Americans, as to why they raised their daughter to know better than to fall into someone's hateful ideology. She then remembers the day when her earthbending abilities first manifested. It was a trip with her family rock climbing, where suddenly all the rocks on the mountain came crashing down, killing her parents and brother, but left her standing feeling a strange sensation across her body with her powers awakening, having accidentally killed her entire family. Afterwards, she'd be forced to bump around different foster homes, where things would even get worse, as a foster father would attempt to sexually abuse her. But in self-defense, her powers revealed themselves again with the earth swallowing up the pedo, as he called her a mutant, which finally rang a bell to her as to what she was. Petra would run away testing her powers out more, which she would discover could include creating diamonds and jewels, but would be pursued by police who she would use her powers against. She would however be tased down and arrested, as she did almost murder the cops. After which she would end up going to jail only to be bailed out by someone with a soft spot for mutant kids, with Petra being about 17. We don't actually see who this person is, but at first it's heavily implied to be Charles, although it'd be revealed to be Moira, who would adopt her almost like a daughter, looking over her along with 3 other mutant kids to help understand and control their powers. But when the X-Men were kidnapped by Krakoa, Charles would attempt to get their help, but Moira was against the idea. The 4 young mutants, however, were up for it, resulting in Charles essentially creating a mental danger room in their minds for them to train, giving them the training of a lifetime in a few short minutes. As you probably could already tell, this rescue mission doesn't go too well. They would manage to save Cyclops, who flies back in a jet to the X-Mansion. However, this X-Men team would try to save the other heroes, but Krakoa would fight back, with Sway being the first to die, but before she would use her powers to slow down time, because that's what she does. While the other 3 are meant to be executed by Volcano, However, Petra, with this additional time, managed to use her powers to lead them underneath the volcano, but she was still severely injured, resulting in her death too. After which, the surviving male members, Darwin and Vulcan, were also both injured. Unlikely to make it, Darwin would fuse himself into Vulcan as a means of saving Vulcan's life. Cyclops, on arrival to the expansion, would have his memories wiped by Charles out of these 4 mutants, since Charles felt their deaths, and also Cyclops did see Sway die. But he was also under the impression that Vulcan was also dead, which he wasn't, and now he's pissed. Charles is honestly the worst in this story. I'm not entirely sure if the writers were intending for the character to be unlikable, but if they were, they succeeded. I know Vulcan murders Banshee, but I'm kind of on his side a bit on this. He goes against Moira by sending in this team into Krakoa, where they die, and then, because it was technically his fault for sending them there, he just wipes the memories of them ever existing. That seems kind of questionable, like he's trying to sweep it underneath the rug. They kind of frame it like he's protecting them from the trauma, that being Cyclops, and I think Moira as well. But I don't believe that. I think he's really just trying to hide his own mistakes. Like he's ashamed of it, knowing that was a horrible idea. Doesn't want anyone to know that he sent this demon to die. Darwin would be revealed to still technically be alive inside Vulcan, as that's his power he adapts to survive, and apparently that even means as a parasite if that is necessary. Well, Petra and Sway would finally be acknowledged as fallen X-Men with graves behind the mansion. During the Krakoa era, Petra and Sway weren't able to be reborn by the 5 due to the fact their deaths were before Cerebro, resulting in Vulcan creating energy constructs of them both, and shouldn't be kind of losing it, thinking that they were really back. But then it becomes a little unclear as if they're actually alive or not, this being because Wanda does say she can properly resurrect them, but Vulcan is losing it with the energy constructs seemingly becoming nearly sentient. The plot point of these constructs wouldn't really be resolved, with instead Vulcan dying. He's resurrected almost immediately afterwards, though. I will say I like Petra's redesign. If they're ever to really return, this costume I think would be a cool way to go. Petra would also sort of appear in animation in Wolverine and the X-Men, where original character Christy Nord is an earthbending mutant who most believe to be based on Petra, with the character even getting credit as such on places like Marvel Wiki or Comic Vine. This helped by the character's design also resembling Petra. I mean, kinda. Both Caucasian women with blonde hair. However, this character was the daughter of Maverick, who would have a subplot in the series following her resentment of Wolverine for believing that he had killed her father, but instead he was actually alive being a brainwashed assassin called Maverick, until Emma and Wolverine helped reunite the father and daughter. And that's it for Petra. As a character, I think she was a bit of a waste. I really took to her origin and how she felt about seeing mutant hate. Not being scared of it, but just simply annoyed by people's ignorance. Something that I think a lot of people can relate to in the real world. I have seen some debate about the idea that Petra and Sway were fridged, that being because the 2 female members of the team die and the 2 male members survive, which I think is a reasonable argument to make. However, I don't think that was actually the intention. I'm pretty sure Darwin surviving was going to be a plot twist, but I can still see someone coming to that conclusion. Petra, in my personal opinion, had potential. However, she was doomed from the very start because she was designed to be killed off. That was the whole point of the character being created, was so she could die at the end of the series. We knew before she even appeared that she would die because it was mentioned they all died. However, she was specifically designed in a way that you would feel bad for the character and like the character, so that when she was killed off you felt gutted, which it definitely worked because I actually really liked the character, to the point I kind of wish she survived, or perhaps was resurrected somehow. Either way, that is Petra's story. Pretty short and sad. And that's it. Like always, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!